Hello and welcome to the Capitol Report on NTD Television. I'm Steve Lance. Former President Trump's lawyers today reportedly meeting with federal prosecutors. Many expected an indictment today, but according to Trump, he says not so fast. Trump posted on social media earlier today saying, "My attorneys had a productive meeting with the DOJ this morning. No indication of notice was given during the meeting. Do not trust the fake news on anything." The meeting comes in connection with yet another case against Trump. Special counsel Jack Smith is investigating Trump's role in January 6th. Trump's lawyer today pleading that he committed no wrongdoing. They say Trump exercised his First Amendment right when he alleged election fraud. Some had previously speculated that Trump would be indicted today, which did not happen. And what's the extent of the Chinese Communist regime's role in fentanyl trafficking? The Drug Enforcement Administration laying out how the CCP uses false packaging to ship fentanyl chemicals to two major cartels. NTD's Melina Wisecup has the details.
Bipartisan collaboration between Republicans and Democrats is a rare sight here on Capitol Hill, but it does happen in specific areas like how to address the fentanyl crisis, which right now is the leading cause of death for Americans ages 18 to 45.
Attacking the source of this, which is the Chinese chemical companies in China, but as well, we must deal with the hugeness of cartels and the persistence of cartels.
3 cases in which we charged 4 Chinese chemical companies, 8 Chinese nationals, and we charged them for knowingly providing customers in the United States and Mexico with precursor chemicals and the scientific know-how to make fentanyl.
The administrator of the Drug Enforcement Administration testified that the Chinese Communist Party is engaging in deceitful measures, like false packaging to mail fentanyl precursors to Mexico, fueling 2 vast cartels, the Sinaloa cartel and the Jalisco cartel, which control the majority of the fentanyl global supply chain.
Border barriers, technology along the border, you have to stop their financial incentives.
This crisis costing more than 100,000 lives per year on average. That's roughly 300 deaths every day.
But if we're losing wartime numbers being killed by the cartels and the CCP, I ask you, what is the definition of war?
This deadly substance sourced in China goes to Mexico and then here to the U.S., where oftentimes social media platforms are the last step. Reporting from Capitol Hill, Melina Wisecup, NTD News.
President Biden holding talks with the Italian Prime Minister today. China and Russia are at the top of the agenda. NTD's Iris Tao brings us more from the White House.
And President Biden today held bilateral talks with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. The two reaffirmed ties despite having ideological differences.
And I think Italian people, I want to thank them for supporting you and supporting Ukraine. It makes a big difference.
Meloni, who rose to power last year, leads Italy's most right-wing administration in decades. But the two leaders, though holding different stances on social issues like abortion, do share a lot of common ground on international objectives when it comes to China and Russia.
Regardless of their political colors, we know who our friends are in times that are tough.
Italy has been working closely with the U.S. to support Ukraine, and Meloni is reportedly trying to pull out of China's Belt and Road Initiative, which Italy's previous administration joined in 2019 despite opposition from NATO and Washington.
More and more countries around the world are seeing the risks and, quite frankly, the lack of reward for economic partnerships with China.
The White House this week again highlighted the risks of China's investment and infrastructure program, which critics say would expose countries' critical infrastructure and sensitive technologies to the Chinese Communist regime. But the White House said ultimately,
for the Italians to speak to, that's their sovereign decision.
And now Washington and G7 countries are promoting their own alternative to China's Belt and Road Initiative. The goal, leaders say, is to reduce dependencies on other countries. Reporting from the White House, Iris Tao, NTD News.
President Biden today announcing 2 steps to combat extreme heat and protect workers. This comes as nearly 40% of the United States population is facing heat advisories.
I've asked Acting Labor Secretary Julie Su to issue a heat hazard alert. It clarifies that workers have federal heat-related protections We should be protecting workers from hazardous conditions, and we will. And those states where they do not, I'm going to be calling them out, where they refuse to protect these workers.
As part of the initiative, the Department of Labor will issue a hazard alert to notify employers and employees about ways to stay protected from extreme heat. The department will also scale up inspections in high-risk industries like construction and agriculture. The U.S. Forest Service will award $1 billion in grants to help cities plant trees to provide shade and help bring temperatures down. The Biden administration also plans to spend $7 million to develop more detailed weather predictions, plus $152 million to boost drinking water infrastructure and climate resilience in California, Colorado, and Washington state. 2 years after the chaotic U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan, lawmakers today investigating what went wrong. Military officials testifying before a House committee about what they witnessed. NTD's Arian Pazdar has highlights from the hearing.
Our hasty actions set the conditions for the Afghan government's collapse, the Taliban's slingshot to power, and the loss of 20 years of hope and progress in the Afghan people.
On Thursday, a House Foreign Affairs subcommittee held a hearing titled "A Failure to Plan," examining the Biden administration's preparation for the Afghanistan withdrawal. A retired Army colonel says most didn't approve of Biden's withdrawal when the U.S. left Afghanistan in August of 2021.
There was very little evidence to suggest that the Biden administration's plan would work, and a mountain range of evidence to suggest the plan would fail. General Milley, General Miller, and General McKenzie all recommended not withdrawing until the Doha Agreement conditions were met.
The Doha Agreement was brokered between the U.S. and the Taliban under the Trump administration. According to the Democrat ranking member, that's exactly when things in Afghanistan started to crumble. He says that's because after the agreement, Trump brought the numbers of troops down to only around 1,000, leaving them vulnerable to attacks from the Taliban.
My point here is there was a really hard decision that had to be made, that President Biden made, choosing from extremely difficult alternatives that would have potentially caused more conflict and more combat operations through 2021 into the present.
A major question people had after the failed withdrawal was who to hold accountable. Some say it wasn't clear who was in charge of the operation. Another retired colonel explained why he thinks that was.
You've got these different bureaucratic silos, so it could be DOD, state, aid, the IC with their different silos, and there's nobody in charge of this group on the ground.
He says the reason no one was in charge was because there was no formal plan for the withdrawal and departments acted on their own. Arian Pazdar, NTD News.
Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.